You are going to move today. You have a short practice at the end, which you can totally jump ahead to. Fine with me. But what we're going to talk about is these kind of ins and outs of what you should and shouldn't do during postnatal, postpartum period. I'm not going to cover everything. I'm going to cover the practical things. And I really, really, really want you to hear me when I say this. This is my PSA to every human who has 1 child, 5 children. We're not going to do it perfect. We are only human, and allow yourself to be human, because unless you have the perfect baby who sleeps the perfect amount and you sleep the perfect amount and your hormones are totally balanced and you get the perfect diet for exactly all the nutrients and your lifestyle that you need and your nervous system is ideally balanced, we're never going to have those conditions, right? Especially with children, but even if we don't have any children, we're never going to get that. So I want you to allow yourself to be patient, to be kind, to be human. Allow yourself your asymmetries. Allow yourself to move through your day without criticizing yourself on, oh, I'm not supposed to do it this way, I'm not supposed to do it that way. Just allow yourself to be, and know that you can always come back to any kind of practice, but definitely like the practice we're going to do later, you can come back to that to help reset and balance yourself. That being said, I am going to give you a few things that you can just have in your brain to think about. Again, not to criticize yourself, but just to think about when you're moving out throughout your day, because babies and kids and their stuff is a lot to schlep around. All right, so let's look at that. Number 1, lift from your legs, right? I mean, everyone in any sort of fitness, health, whatever, is going to tell you lift from your legs. What does that mean? What does that mean? That means all the stuff you have to pick up, including your children, but I'm not going to drop my kid on the floor, right? I'm just going to drop this down, but all the stuff on the floor, right? So every single time we kind of do, especially if it's toys, but sometimes even if it's a baby, we might keep the legs straight, we might bend them a little bit, but we round our back. This is a big load on our spine. So if you're rounding and doing that while you pick up, you're putting a huge load on what we call a flexed spine, which means you're pushing your discs. Like you hear someone talk about a herniated disc, you hear them, that's what they're talking about. The discs in between your vertebra get kind of pushed back against your, like they squish backwards against there. So how would we do that? I mean, again, if I'm picking up a toy car, let's say this ball, not a lot of load. If I round a little, whatever, it's fine. But say I'm going for a kid, right? Imagine this is my 1-year-old. He's like 20 some odd pounds, I don't know. Instead of going here, even if I use 2 arms, I'm going to squat, or at least hinge in my hips, right? If I'm strong enough, I might go a little bit here. If my back and my glutes and my hamstrings are strong enough, and I'm gonna pick him up. If not, I'm gonna see, can I get lower? This also is still glutes, but a little less back. Hamstrings have to work, right? A couple of things happen there. 1, you're putting all your force and your load more into this pulley system of your haunches, right? Your glutes, your hamstrings, your legs, all of that stuff, versus into the spine. And so you're getting this balance there. But also, especially if you're adding in a squat, right? You're getting a little pelvic floor stretch, but also activation, which a lot of times post-baby, especially if you're pregnant, you get a lot of tightness in the back of the pelvic floor and looseness in the front of the pelvic floor. So that's a nice way to practice balancing that. So win-win. So that's the first thing I'm going to talk about. Next up, car seat. So I'm going to add this weight rather than putting my baby in there. He's napping. So this is a 15-pound weight. Both my children are above 15 pounds, but when they were born, they weren't 15 pounds. So I'm just going to go happy medium. This infant car seat is, I don't know, good 10, maybe 8 to 10 pounds. It's the lighter version of whatever car seat this is. Some are more, some are less, but you got that, right? So can you even lift this without going all over in your back? Right? So if you are pregnant and you have a car seat, you can start doing some arm lifts. I'm going to add this, and we're going to talk about lifting the car seat. So it's lovely. If you have a high enough car, you just get that car seat out, and you place it on. Place it on your stroller. Get that stroller attachment and just pick it up. Look, pick it up, shift my weight, click it on. Right? So if you're getting out of the car, that's great. But say you're at home, use the stroller, right? So that's part A of this. Use the stroller. Attach that thing, make sure it's secure. free yourself from that load because you're going to be carrying your babies, your children for umpteen years. Now, if I'm going to lift this, again, I don't want to lift here, arms straight. Everything goes right here. So, one, I have to have my arms strong enough. I love it when women are weight training before pregnancy, during pregnancy, after, but even if you start after, that's better than nothing, right? If you start during, wonderful. So here I am. This is a little off center. Again, when I had my baby and I would carry him around in here, I definitely am not always like perfectly doing whatever. So in my dream scenario, we have center of gravity over our stroller, we're lifting up, and we're carrying in the center of ourselves. Maybe I go from inside my house to the car, I try and get up, I put him down as I open the car up, I hinge my hips, right? So let's do this. I'm hinging, I'm in my heels, arms, glutes, hamstrings, a little bit of core stabilization too. Now, early postpartum, the baby's lighter, but you're a little more wobbly, right? So you're recovering. And a lot of this, and a lot of this, and a lot of twisting with that load, which is, if you've got any sort of diastasis, you've got a C-section scar, it's real iffy. So if you can, slow down. Just slow down, bring it center as often as possible. You're never gonna be 100%. There are gonna be times where you need your arms, you gotta do this. You don't feel comfortable putting the baby down, whatever. But you're gonna try to stay center. And you're gonna practice your arm lifts, I know you are, so that when you do this, you're not, right? So you can stabilize here. The farther along in your pregnancy you get, you can stabilize here as you hold that load, right? But the dream scenario is here. All right, the last one is holding the baby. So I've tried to put a little suit on him. Oh, how cute, this 20-pound weight. So as babies get bigger, right, they are less of a little beans falling asleep on you, snuggled up, 6, 8, 10 pounds, not that much, but then they get to be like wiggly guys. And if your baby's anything like mine, they like to direct you. They like to direct you various places. So it's a lot of weight pulling on you. So just some gentle strength training is nice for that. But how do we do this? Because I know better, and I still do it. And I see other moms who do Pilates, do their exercise, we all do it. It doesn't matter, you get tired, you're doing things one arm. We're here with our kids propped on our hips out to one side, hips out to the other side, leaning back, right? It's just gonna happen. We just are human, and this is what's gonna happen. I mean, it's almost more awkward to hold the weight than it is the baby, because I don't have legs to prop underneath my arm. But we're here, and I gotta stir the thing, I gotta pour the milk, I gotta get in and out of the fridge. Again, if I got the baby, how do I do this? It's kind of nice when you have the baby because it holds you accountable for squatting. So like, I can't always go, unless the head's gonna fall. So I'm gonna go here, going down and up with that weight. And I am going to try my best, as often as I can remember, to get my weight centered, bring my hips underneath me, find a little bit of core support, and make sure, my kid very rarely wants to stay here anymore. He's over 12 months old, so he wants to see the world. He doesn't want to be here. But if you can bring them center, again, bring it to the center of gravity for as long as possible is helpful, but a lot of times we're off to one side. So when you're off to one side, see if you can bring your hips center. Are you leaning back, right? Are we locking out our knees, or are we leaning back? See if you can bring your front rib cage a little closer to your pelvis so you can open this up. So you've got your pelvis, your rib cage over your pelvis, instead of your rib cage kind of forward in the front of the pelvis and push down and forward on the back. So here, maybe you bend your knees a little bit, maybe you practice squeezing your glutes, maybe you need to release them, depends on the person. But try not to always stand out like this. Trying to practice some moments where you're like, okay, I could be here, this is great. I gotta do things, I gotta talk, I'm talking to my other kids, gotta do stuff for them. But then you're like, oh wait, reminder, even weight on my feet. Make sure my knees aren't locked out. Bring my ribs over my pelvis, not over to one side of my pelvis, but on top of my pelvis, and find that. Connect my shoulders onto my body, right? Your shoulders need to rest on your ribs, and hold the baby there. Maybe you do that once a day, that's progress, right? You don't need to do it every single time, because again, you are only human, and we do enough as moms, as parents. It's enough And then you have a practice that you get to help reset and balance yourself that you can do anytime. And that's what we're going to do now. And all of this is why it's important just to have some reset protocol, because we do not live in a perfect world, nor do we live in a vacuum, and life is happening all the time. So what I'm going to have you grab is some sort of prop. I'm going to be using a yoga block because I like that. You could also use a foam roller, or I have these Franklin balls. I'll link them below, but also, you know, if you want videos with these, let me know in the comments below. I'm going to use a yoga block because I feel like most people have yoga blocks. So find whatever prop you need. Maybe you don't have a yoga block, but you want to use something similar. Grab some books, right? You're going to lay on your side and roll to your back. Then finding your placement that feels comfortable for you, you're going to take whatever you've got and place that underneath your pelvis. And as you place that underneath your pelvis, you're trying not to go too high to where you feel like your back is arched, and you don't want to go so low that you kind of are rounding. You want to find that you're right across the center of the sacrum and the pelvis, and you can walk your feet a little together. I'm even going to give a little pressure on the outside of my pelvis in, so I feel the back of my pelvis get a little wider. I feel my sacrum drop. And then we're just going to start by pulling one knee in towards our chest and slowly sliding the other leg out. I'm still trying to keep my pelvis level here as I straighten out that bottom leg. Breathing there, relaxing your shoulders and your throat, your jaw. Take 3 deep breaths here. And if you want more, you do more. Inhaling, inhaling, inhaling. Exhale, let your belly hollow back. One more like that. Inhaling, inhaling, inhaling. Then exhaling, hollowing your belly back at the very end of your exhale while your belly's still falling back. Drag the straight leg in. Again, if you want more time there, spend more time there. Bring both feet down. Take a moment. Make sure your pelvis and sacrum feel level and centered on the block. And then grab your other leg and stretch the other leg down and out. And go slow so that I'm making sure I don't hike my other hip, that I am trying to stay centered in my sacrum and pelvis. So on this side, I'm just going to go a little bit slower as I straighten that leg. And I'll go as straight as I can. I'll breathe. And then maybe on my exhale, I can extend my knee a little bit more. Noticing my leg wants to turn out or turn in. You know, just explore that. But most importantly, keeping that pelvis and sacrum nice and heavy and wide on the block. 1 or 2 more breaths here. Making sure that you're keeping everything level. You're keeping your shoulders relaxed. Your throat and neck nice and long. The next time you exhale, you want to feel the belly hollow back at the very end of your exhale. Bring that leg in and plant both feet down on the ground. When you decide to come off your surface, off your block, you really want to recruit your hamstrings and glutes to brace your pelvis and sacrum, so like your leg muscles, your hip muscles are buttressing your pelvic bones to hold your sacrum in place so you don't go into your back. I'm going to activate that, lift up, gently come down, and I'm going to take the block now on a narrow setting between my legs, pretty close to my pubic bone. So I'm not trying to hit the knees, but everyone's a little bit different in your proportions of how your legs are in the socket, just literally how your bones are, but and also our flesh and our muscular development is just different. So place the block somewhere where your knees aren't going to knock into it, but that it also feels accessible to you. Then we're going to reach our arms up towards the ceiling. We're going to start with some articulated bridges so that you can really feel your body here, articulating with the mat, and then we're just going to wake up the hamstrings and glutes with some glute bridging. So you're going to breathe in, and on your exhale, press into the feet, curl the pelvis under, let your back lean into the mat as you slowly lift up. Reaching the knees out over the middle toes. Not trying to push my belly to the ceiling or push my back to the ceiling. I'm imagining my belly, my organs hanging into a hammock. Then with these straight arms up towards the ceiling, palms facing each other, we're going to take our arms towards the floor above our head. Maybe your hands go all the way to the ground. Maybe they stay hovering. Totally up to you. But you imagine someone's pulling your fingertips and someone's pulling your knees. And then you're going to slowly exhale and drop the ribs down, massaging and widening your back body onto the mat as you roll all the way down, and then bringing your arms back up towards the ceiling. We're going to do that 2 more times. Exhale, curling and rolling up, reaching the knees out over the toes, reaching the arms overhead. Someone's pulling your arms one way, someone's pulling your knees the other way. So you're tractioning everything, and then you're trying to think, oh, how crooked am I? How centered am I? Can I, like, one side's touching the floor a lot faster than the other, and then, one hamstring's doing much different work than the other. So hello, asymmetries. And then we do one more. You exhale, hollow the belly back, curling the pelvis under, pressing into the feet. I'm hugging my block, which might mean that if you have really tight quads, front hip flexors in the front of your hips, front of your thighs, then you might come up a little lower because it might be like really hard to come up any higher. Reach the arms overhead, breathe, and then exhale, massaging your back down onto the mat all the way. Bring your arms up to the ceiling and then all the way down by your side. Make sure your feet are in a comfortable place where you're staying on a parallel track. I always think like railroad track. From my feet, through my sits bones, my ribs, my pelvis, like everything's on this parallel track. Specifically, really feel like you can connect your heels. You connect the ball of the foot, spreading the weight as evenly as you possibly can. You're going to come up to the height that feels like you can use your hamstrings and glutes, not your lower back, and not your belly pushing up towards the ceiling. I don't care how high the bridge is. I care about the movement in your hip joint and the work in the back of the hip. And then you're just going to tap the butt down, and then you're going to come up for 2. Down and up 3. Hugging the block the whole time. 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Come all the way down and rest. Take your block to the side, and then we're going to roll to our side. Remember, this is just your sort of reset. You're trying to find some semblance of balance and symmetry after, a day or heading into a day of craziness, especially if you have kids and you're running around it's just nuts and you've got all these things going on. So it's just coming back, it's calibrating, right? So we're not going to spend a ton of time, but you're welcome to spend more time on any one place. We're going to reach the top arm towards the ceiling and the top leg out and adjust your bottom leg so you feel like, okay, it's my kickstand, right? So I don't want you to feel like I'm having to worry about my balance here. I am going to find a little lift, like if I find my navel and I go down to the floor, there's a little lift, but I want to make sure that from kind of the middle of my rib cage to my shoulder blade does have contact. And I'm going to flex that top foot and reach to the heels. I'm going to reach my arm up towards the ceiling, and you're going to lower the foot and reach the arm overhead so you're creating more space in that top side of your body. You're going to breathe in there. And then on your exhale, you're going to imagine that top foot reaching and staying on the wall. As you lift up, reach your arm up towards the ceiling. And then inhale, reach. Exhale, lift 2. Inhale, reach. Exhale, lift 3. Inhale, reach. Exhale, lift 4. And I'm just moving the shoulder blade. My arm is a little bit in front of my body so that I can see my arm. Even if I'm looking straight forward through my peripheral vision, it's casting a shadow on my head. 2 more. Inhale and exhale. And I'm not trying to make my arm and my leg touch, although you could do that. I'm just trying to keep this length in my spine and then bringing that arm up. Then take the arm just to the ground in front of you. Make sure that you can feel like your belly and your ribs are pulling away from that arm. You're going to point your top foot. You're going to turn it out, and then you're going to make circles, just 5 circles. And I like to imagine my toes like little pencils drawing on the wall. 3, 4, 5, and then go the other way. The back and the up is always the most challenging for us. 2, 3, 4, one more, 5. And then bring that leg down, come all the way up, and we'll do the other side. When you come up, you can add a little side bend, breathe, and then we'll swing our legs around to the other side. So stretching out. Stretch the top leg out, find your little lift, your mouse house, so navel to the mat, but can I get some contact in my ribs? I'm gonna flex my top foot. I'm gonna reach my arm overhead. It's casting a shadow. I'm gonna reach my arm a little bit lower to the ground as my leg pushes down to the ground. And then I'm gonna exhale and lift up, just enough to where I feel my glutes activate, my arm connect. So there's a little pull with my arm, and then inhale, reach. Exhale, lift, 2. Inhale, reach. Exhale, lift, 3. Inhale, reach. Exhale, lift, 4. Inhale, reach. Exhale, lift, 5. Inhale, reach. Exhale, 6. Inhaling. Exhale, 7. Inhaling. Exhale, up, 8. Take the top hand to the mat. Point your top foot, turn it out, and I'm trying to give the starting point, this foot in alignment with my hip. My ribs and belly are pulling back. I'm gonna circle my leg, but try not to rock, and you do 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, going the other direction for 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, and then bringing the legs together, press with your arms to come up. Take a quick little side bend, breathing, and then you're gonna make your way to your hands and knees. Now on your hands and knees, what we're gonna play with is just shifting around, practicing, can you keep your pelvis level? So I'm gonna use the block so that I know I'm not gonna lose the block, into my lower back or down on the ground. So I'm gonna place it right across my sacrum, pelvis, that area. I'm gonna stay as straight as I possibly can. Head, ribs, belly, lifting off of there. If you know that you still need support, you can pad up and find support. I like to use like a magic circle and a block underneath the magic circle to give me support. You could just take a bunch of yoga blocks, pillows, whatever you've got. And you're gonna go back, and as I go back, instead of rounding my pelvis under, I'm gonna keep it pretty level, which means I'm not gonna go back as far as I normally can. I'm gonna allow my pelvic floor to stretch, sits bones to widen. FYI, this is your squat. This is you getting down on the ground, is this hip mobility, allowing those sits bones to widen, allowing the femurs to drop deeper into the socket, and then pull forward. And I'm thinking pull with my arms. And then shift back again. Allow your breath to almost go down into that pelvic floor. Exhale, maybe gather the pelvic floor as you come forward. Inhale, go back. Exhaling, coming forward. One more like that. Inhale, going back. If you need to do many more of these, by all means, go for it. We're gonna take your block just to the front of your mat. You're gonna take one leg out to the side. You're gonna do one little stretch back and forth out to the side. Then you're gonna bring that leg forward. And we're gonna go forward and back. And I'm making this very fluid. So again, you don't feel like you have to spend all your time there. So I'm gonna go forward, and I'm allowing this hip to get a big stretch here to drop down. I'm keeping my belly supported. I'm gonna bend my back leg if that feels okay for my body. And then I'm gonna stretch back, and as I stretch back, my hands might come back. I'm gonna try and lift my toes and straighten my leg, thinking heel reaching forward, hips reaching back, belly supported. Now, if you need a yoga block, or if you need to keep the knee a little bent, you can still have those directions of sits bones, ischial tuberosities, hips, whatever you wanna think, back, heel forward, that's fine. And then you can come forward again, and back. And forward, and back. Then from there, Bring that leg around. Find center. Do one shift in the center. Notice if it feels any different. Take the other leg out to the side. Do one shift back and forth there. Still, even when I shift here, I'm still trying to think. Allow my sits bones to widen, allow my spine to stay lifted. And then we're gonna bring this foot forward, this leg forward. You're gonna come forward. Some of us need the block here, right? So you might need like hand on the block. You can bend that back leg, or you can just keep your hands on the mat. I just want you to listen to what feels good in your body. And then you're gonna go back and you're going to attempt to straighten this front leg, lifting the toes up, heel forward, hips back. And then you come forward. And then you go back. And then you come forward, you breathe. And then you go back. And then you bring that leg all the way around underneath you. Take your feet together and your knees slightly apart. Take the block between the hands. You might need to move it around a little bit. And now we're gonna go back into child's pose. So if your knees are a little pinchy, give yourself some padding. I mean, maybe not a yoga block, it's not the most comfortable, but maybe like a pillow or something. If you need to keep your butt up and just take your head down, that's fine. But what we're gonna do is the world's slowest transition to a child's pose by gently rounding the back. I'm thinking like the most gentle arc I can possibly make, and then let my butt slide towards my feet. Taking a few times to just breathe in there. I'm allowing my pelvis to droop. I'm allowing my navel and ribs to try and pull back. And this is where I'm going to bring this block forward. I'm going to crawl my hands forward. I'm going to allow my forehead to rest on the block as I do the last little bit of release. And you're really inhaling and exhaling. Exploring here, where do you allow yourself to inhale? And where do you not move on your inhale? How does your exhale feel? Does it feel like one side really goes, zoop, pulls in really fast, and the other side's kind of slow? Or can we even out that pacing as you inhale and exhale? Because your belly is towards your thighs, your belly can expand only so much. So it's a really lovely place to practice getting the back body to expand and move. And exhaling, you can practice pulling the belly away from your thighs on your exhale here. 2 more breaths here. Allowing your inhale to stretch not just your chest, your ribs, but your belly and your back and your pelvic floor. As you exhale, hollowing the belly up under the ribs, away from the thighs. 1 more breath there, inhaling. And exhaling. When you decide to come out of this, use your arms to press weight, to roll your pelvis upright before you bring your head upright. So I'm going to try and get my pelvis neutral and maybe, get my pelvis level. So pubic bone and hip bones level, then my ribs, then my shoulders, then my neck and head. And if I were butt up, head down, I would just come to hands and knees and then to my side. So that way I'm really taking care of any precarious things in my sacrum, my pelvis, my low back. And that way I can really take care of my body, because that is what this is all about, is making sure that you take care of yourself when you have this full, busy life. All right, until next time, keep moving.